It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the Beholder number 14 from May of 1980. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. Today, from May of 1980, this is the Beholder number 14, the product of Mike Stoner and Guy Duke. Hope you enjoy the video. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. We're continuing our look at some of the great products from the early days of the role-playing hobby, and in particular, as you know, in my channel, we focus on Dungeons & Dragons related material. This is the Beholder number 14. They mention in here this is an anniversary issue, or that they finished 1 year, but obviously it's issue number 14. They put out one every month, and so the way I've calculated that, this one actually would have come out in May, so it's a little over a year from when they released their first issue. Anyway, this is heavy stock and paper folded in half, stapled on the side. Here is the cover. The art this time is by Phil Alexander, and if you watch this channel, you'll remember his name from one of the very first videos we did. The first fanzine we looked at in the United Kingdom was called Underworld Oracle, and Lou Nisbet and Phil Alexander did that fanzine, and Phil did all of the art. And so here is his art. It's fantastic. You've got this guy here with a two-handed sword he's trying to use. This creature is coming down, looks maybe it's like a gargoyle or something like that, and in the background you can see there are more of these creatures flying across the moon, and then up there above the clouds is sort of a specter of death. So really, really cool cover art. In terms of content, we've got the short editorial, an article on Amazons as a player character class, some tricks and traps you can use in your dungeon. Graham Staplehurst has the second part of his article for characters' life after death. We talked about the first part of that, obviously, in the last issue. An index of all the monsters that have appeared so far. Magic jar, new magic items. Death traps, a few common death traps you might use in your Superhero 2044 game. Q&A survey, where they're asking for input from the readers about their feedback on the Beholder magazine and some other things about their interaction with the hobby. Some new magic spells. Gorge of the Afterlife, which is the D&D adventure this time. Monster summoning, new monsters. A short article on Traveler, and Magic Jar 2, a second column with new magic items. Guy Duke and Michael Stoner, principally responsible. Phil Alexander given credit for art. And Graham Staplehurst, of course, does the article on life after death. Here's the cover. This one is the first printing. At this point, the starting subscription price when these came out was 45 pence. There would have been a 50 and a 55. I don't have copies of those. And then the last one that came out was 60 pence. And again, as you know, the contents are always the same. They just change the price when they do reprints. Speaking of reprints, they mention here in the editorial, that's driven by demand. They have copies of issues 1 through 7 now. This is at least the second or third time they've reprinted some of these early issues. 8, 9, and 10, they say they don't have enough demand for those yet to do a reprint. They still have some original copies of issues 11 and 12 at this point, probably 13 as well, I'm guessing. And this is to celebrate the first birthday. As we said last time, we have this competition called the Contribution Competition, which is basically any type of contribution you want to make. Could be a new monster, new spells, an article about how to play better, new adventure, anything you want to turn in. They're just going to pick what they feel is the best article they get, and you'll get a reward, some free issues of the Beholder, things like that. The first thing they have is this article on the Amazon subclass of fighters for females. Strength of 12, dexterity 15, constitution 12, charisma 16, minimum stats, has to be female, has to be human. And if all those 4 stats are 16 or above, you get a XP bonus. Have to be chaotic, although they can be good, evil, or neutral. Only leather armor, and a fairly restricted list of weapons: short bow, dagger, sling, spear, trident, and broadsword. They get 2d8 for hit points at first level, and then just 1d8 every level after that until they reach 11th level, and then they just get a couple points. They also get some added level-based abilities. At first level, kind of very traditional for the time, they have the charm male twice a day. It's a charm person. Remember, they have to have a high charisma just to be an Amazon. Then at, I think it's third or fourth level, they get a +2 on all saves. Then they get an immunity to poison, cure light wounds once a day, tracking as per a ranger. They can use 1 first level druid spell per day. They can use first level thief abilities, and they can use at 13th level, they can use 1 second level druid spell and 1 cleric spell each day, in addition to the 1 first level druid spell they already had. These are not innate abilities. They say they are given an amulet at birth, and their special abilities and they have to keep that on them. Their special abilities arise from the amulet. If they lose it, they will lose their special abilities and just become fighter. And if you steal the amulet, you don't get any special abilities. You just have a piece of jewelry. Okay, that's it for the Amazon class. Then we have some tricks and traps. I love these kind of things. You've got some very specific examples. He's got this altar, jet black stone, 6 by 6 by 3. Any inanimate object placed on the altar will be taken in as a sacrificial item if you leave it there for 12 seconds. It becomes teleported inside of here. There's no opening. There's no way to get it back. Physical attacks do no damage. So you have to do 100 points of magical damage, like a fireball, lightning bolt, burning hands, etc. And then it would crack and become destroyed. And all the stuff will come pouring out onto the floor. If you put a living creature of any sort on top of there, after 6 seconds, a jewel-encrusted dagger will appear next to it, and as if held by an invisible hand, will try to stab into the heart of the creature and kill it. And then the dagger will vanish. So it's a little freaky. Next, we have the fire trap. There's a large fire in a fireplace. If you get over top of the fire, the thermals will cause you to float up. You may take fire damage, but you float up through this chimney to get to other levels of the building. The force field, just an invisible energy field that prevents passage through it by anyone or anything. Could be placed over top of a pit and have a trigger that causes it to go off so that you fall into the pit, or maybe it appears after you fall into the pit. But anyway, that is the force field. The mosaic, a mosaic tile set into the floor or wall of a room. Obviously different pieces, different colors to make up a picture. They say they have this triggered by a preset event or code word, and the mosaic pieces animate and will answer any question asked of the magical enchantment. They'll rearrange themselves into letters that you can read. But it also may be lying, so there's that risk. Here we have some skeletons animated by evil clerics, and they'll carry out certain pre-arranged instructions. They may also be put inside of enchanted or otherwise just better armor or given better weapons. But still, they can be turned as normal. We have the enchanted pool of water. You don't see your reflection, but you see faces staring back at you. This kind of feels like it comes from Tolkien. Hands will reach up out of the water, and you can hear a cry for help. If you reach in to try and help the whatever it is that's in there, as soon as you touch fingers, that person will pop up out of the water, and you will then be, by magical enchantment, without saving throw, inside the water, stuck there for eternity until you have a chance to swap places with somebody. No explanation of any sort of dispel magic, anything short of a wish that would free the evil, all the spirits, could be good or evil, that are in there. And as they point out, it's very likely the spirits or the people trapped in there are good, because only a good aligned character would try to help someone out when it looks like there's some risk involved, right? He has a bridge, a stone construction. Up to an ogre-sized creature could cross over a very deep cavern. And you notice a bunch of objects stuck in here. And what happens is It goes from rock to mud transformation, and anyone who's on the bridge at the time gets sucked into the mud, and then there's a reverse enchantment. It goes from mud back to rock, and so it doesn't collapse. It stays in the bridge formation, but then anything on it gets pulled into it. People, including their items, end up stuck inside of here. You could potentially, if you're heavy enough, go all the way through the mud and just fall straight on down into the giant cavern. The maze, basically just tall hedges, maybe made even harder with a plant growth spell of some sort that causes the hedge walls to switch shape. And basically it's just a labyrinth challenge. The archway, anyone who passes through this arch has an illusion cast upon him or her, and you appear as a monster of a similar size, an orc, a goblin, a kobold. And so your party members looking on think you walked in and disappeared and you're replaced by this orc, this goblin, kobold, gnoll, whatever. You can't see it. You feel like you're still there. And if the whole party goes through in relatively rapid succession, all of you are going to see monsters and all of your party members would be gone. The tree trap looks like a normal tree. It gives off a magical aura, and any branch, twig that comes off of this tree turns into an enchanted snake and attacks whatever is nearby. The skull, enchanted, has some type of an animate object enchantment cast on it, and they talk. And there should be some interesting role-playing. Maybe they have the ability to divine something like give answers or to give you a special direction, but basically you just have a talking skull with you. Stairs, they say, typically most DMs know what to do with stairs. You can turn them into a slide or turn them into open up and be a chute of some sort. And another thing he likes to do is put a door at the top with some type of repulsor enchantment so that when you get close to it, you get shoved backwards and fall down the stairs into your party members. And finally, the gravity trap, which is basically using reverse gravity, cause you fly up into the ceiling. Maybe there's spikes in the ceiling, etc. Okay, this is the second half of Graham Staplehurst's article. I told you in the last video during the first part, is it well thought out? Definitely it is. It's well written. I understand it. I don't think it makes any sense in your campaign because it's the multiple years of activity that occur here. You never really get reunited with your party under these rules. I don't understand the point of it. You should be moving on as a player, moving on to your next character. I just think maybe I'm just too old for that. But this is going to be a DM one-on-one sort of, hey, what's going on with my character after death kind of thing that you either do very quickly or on the side outside of the normal campaign. And I don't really, the player may enjoy it, but I don't understand how it interacts with the rest of the people who are playing the game. Here he talks about how druids or others who are trying to go to the elemental plane get in there. You basically become a creature of that plane of similar hit dice to your level. So on fire, you could be a salamander, and a Freedy, or if you're a high enough level, you could be a fire elemental. Obviously, if you went to the earth plane, earth elemental, water plane, water elemental. When you're 16th level, and he talks about how you can earn experience points during your afterlife. Again, who's role-playing that? How's that helpful to the larger party's campaign? I have no idea. But when you get to 16th hit dice, you become a noble of that elemental type, and you have the ability to go into other planes, the primaterial planes, etc. And again, I think it's really well thought out. I just don't see the point of this, and I definitely don't see how this is helpful in your home campaign. Here is a much requested, they say, index, alphabetical order, all the monsters that have been in the first year, meaning 1 through 14, first 14 issues of The Beholder. Now we have some magic items. Some of these I like quite a bit. The Quicksilver Scabbard causes the sword that's in it to basically pop to your hands whenever there's an event of combat. He does point out that if you have intelligent swords, they may get in a fight with the scabbard. They may not like being touching the scabbard. So that's something you could play out as well. The Scabbard of Draining looks a lot like the first one. It is obviously enchanted, but anything in it, the metal becomes weakened. magical blades get a saving throw. And you just decide as the DM when it's so weak it breaks, hopefully based on the evil nature of the scabbard. That would be during combat or some other important moment that the metal would finally be so weak it would break. Next, we have the Sword +2 Brain Blade. It's a brain drainer of sorts. It has an intelligence of 12 plus 1d6, and its enchantment basically is when it hits something, it absorbs intelligence from them. It doesn't say that they become stupider, but I think that's what I'd like to do with it. And for every point of intelligence of the monster, it gains 1 energy point. And the energy can be released as a bolt. This is similar to a lightning bolt, but it's just a enchanted bolt of energy. And when you release it, you have to release everything you have in there. So let's say you have 15 points of energy stored up. You have to release all 15 hit points, and that would do 15 hit points of damage. If you hit a non-intelligent creature, then you immediately lose all of your stored up energy. The next item here is the Staff of Energy used by any class. You can basically use it as a staff. Magic users and illusionists can also use the charges, the magical enchantment, and it will be basically a Shocking Grasp in addition to the regular staff damage. And the Shocking Grasp is 10 to 18 points of damage. Doesn't seem quite right. It probably has to be 11. I think it has 10 plus d8 points of damage. But anyway, that's the basic ability. And that'll use a charge. The other charges, a Shatter spell, double intensity, an 8d6 lightning bolt, 2 charges, a knock spell, that's a 10th level magic user, and a power word kill against a creature if you touch it for 5 charges. And it can be recharged. If it breaks, it'll explode and cause damage to everybody around it. Then we have this little container, like a snuff container of life dust, and it basically will animate an inanimate object if you sprinkle this dust over top of it. But it says, remember, the tin itself will be animated because it's in contact with the dust. I don't know about that. That seems a little crazy because they say that like the container will fight against you because it won't want the dust to come out of it. I don't know if it's animated necessarily means it's intelligent, but in any event, that's what life dust does. And finally, chalk, like chalk on a chalkboard, chalk of the druid. You draw, take this chalk, and you can draw a line of 100 up to 100 feet long on any surface, as long as it's somewhat dry, and whatever, like basically a circle or any type of polygon shape on the ground. And everything ends once you close the loop or whatever. Everything inside of there, there'll be an illusion of a forest. So that area will look like it's trees, basically, right? And obviously you could hide inside of that area. Some ideas for death traps, and they mention in Superhero 2044, just like all the comic books, the villains seem to always want to put you into a death trap but then leave and give you a chance to escape. Here are some examples. He says the swinging pendulum that gets lower and lower until it cuts you in half, the crushing room, side walls or floor and ceiling come together and squash you like a pancake, sliding floor, the floor slides away and drops you into something deadly like a water full of sharks or piranhas or flames or spikes or saws or whatever's down below that's going to kill you, acid, etc. And then the death dive, where they throw you out a tall window or dump you out of an airplane or helicopter with no parachute. And those are their ideas of death traps. And what they say is in a superhero game, you have to design the death trap so that the superhero has a chance to escape, whether that's using their superpowers or their sidekick can come along and help save them, etc. Then we have a survey. They're asking for your feedback on the Beholder. How many issues do you have? Which ones? Which have you read? Which are the best? What types of articles do you like monster summoning, magic jar, thoughts, DM's corner, your campaign, new spells, new character classes, etc. Do you like the Dungeon Wilderness Adventures? Most people think that's their favorite. Is that something you really like? And do you prefer Dungeons or Wilderness Adventures? Should we cover non-D&D games? And if yes, which games? For example, Traveler, Chivalry and Sorcery, RuneQuest, Superhero 2044, or something else? What are the best 3 articles of any issue you've read? What are the worst article? If you subscribe, when do your issues arrive? Like what day of the month? If you're not a subscriber, when do these show up in your local gaming shop? How did you first learn about us? How could we make this better? Which of these magazines, 1 to 10, where 10 is the highest, do you like? The Beholder, Demonsblood, White Dwarf, Trollcrusher, The Dragon, or Alarums and Excursions? Do you like AD&D better than D&D? What games do you regularly play? How did you first learn about role-playing games? Do you have feelings on the general state of our hobby? And what would you like to see happen in the hobby in the next few years? And tell us if you think it will happen. It's a pretty good survey. I'm interested to read these results in a future issue. New magic spells. First, a druid spell of first level, track animals. And he basically gets tracking sense. He can track an animal basically as he's a ranger, out in the wilderness. Second level druid spell, track person. Same as that, but it lets you follow a human or humanoid creature instead of an animal. Level 3 magic user spell, extrapolate. You cast it on yourself and you hold an object and you can see in your mind what this object maybe is a part of. Great thing for if you can't identify something, or there's an adventure where you have to collect 3 or 4 different things. It might show you the other parts, or show you the rest of it, so you can figure out what the other parts might be when you find them. And just a generally good divination spell. Next, we have a level 5 clerical spell called Consecrate. The cleric consecrates an area up to 1 inch by 1 inch, or 10 feet by 10 feet per level. And any creature which is kept out by protection of evil spell will not be able to enter the consecrated area. So basically a protective ring if you're worried about, I think, demons and devils and things of that nature. Waldo's Lockbreaker, the first level magic user spell. It says that this highly specialized spell was created by a magic user thief named Waldo. It's excellent for escaping from a prison or something like that. The energy becomes stored in the magic user's right hand, and when he presses it into a lock, it will shatter it instantly. He can store that energy up to 1 hour per level after casting. So there you go. Another spell, Waldo's Sudden Strength. It gives the magic user or someone else that he touches a strength of 1800 for the duration of the spell, which is 1 round per level, and again could be used to bend bars, smash down the door, or surprisingly, take someone by surprise and overpower them. And then we have the magic user spell, first level, Dwarven Skills. The magic user temporarily gains all the Dwarven skills racial abilities, right? Detecting a grade and slope, new construction, sliding, shifting walls, traps involving falling blocks or stone, and approximate depth underground. So I think those are all pretty good, useful spells. Again, the challenge with a lot of spells like this, if you don't, you'll hardly ever pick them, right? Unless you know what's going to happen that day. And you get in sort of these specialized situations where this is going to be really handy. It's just so difficult in the Vancian system where you have to memorize ahead of time not to pick those best known offensive and defensive spells, I think. Okay, so this is Gorge of the Afterlife. It is Guy Duke's adventure. I just think Guy Duke does a really, really good job with these adventures. Issue after issue, with just a couple of breaks for other people to do it. It's very creative. I always think they're very well done. He does a couple of things that are interesting here I'm going to talk to you about. So here's the map, Gorge of the Afterlife. You start at the bottom. You're going through this gorge. You could drop this adventure in anywhere. That's one of the nice things about the stuff he does. It's really easy to put it into your home campaign. So you got cliffs on the side, and you sort of have to follow along. There's a stream or a river here. There's a pathway. Along the way, there are little tiny encounters you can go through. Okay, and so let me show you the kind of thing that he does. So right here, there's a little tiny adventure, and then right here, he gives inside the text description, he gives you a little diagram, and another one down here at the bottom, right? He gives you a little tiny map diagram for these encounters as you go along. Same thing here with these little tombs that you might come to, and he gives you a little bit of a drawing of that. When you get on this in the middle section, it goes up. This is all one long section. You come to this lake. There's a burial mounds around that. He's got little drawings and descriptions of the things that are going to be in those burial mounds in there. And then you get into the underground map. He says it's supposed to be like the body of a gargoyle. I think head at the top, feet at the bottom. It's a little abstract for sure. And there are a few more powerful people that were buried underground. And it's really well done. As you might imagine, there's a few little creatures along the way that have taken up residence in these cliffs. Undead, no shock. And he says in here, you've got to have a cleric with you on this campaign. And then I think the main bad guy underground is what he calls the Death Wraith, named Murgron. It's basically a wraith, but it's sort of a super powered one. It's harder to turn by a cleric. It also has some magical spells that it can cast. But lots of undead and other little baddies down here underneath. But of course, really cool tombs that haven't been plundered, so you can go in and find these buried ancient adventurers who have, as you might imagine, some pretty cool magic items. Excellent, excellent adventure, just like most of the stuff that guy turns out. Okay, then next we have monster summoning, new magic monsters. The first one here is the Marsh Hag. And again, these are typically, as I understand it, done by Mike Stoner, if not otherwise attributed. So the Marsh Hag is sort of like a sea hag, but not as powerful. It's repulsive and slimy, with great big eyes and clammy wet skin, and basically constantly hungry, looking to eat you if the hag can get its hands on you. It'll strangle you, pull you into the water, and rip you up and have you for dinner. Next we have this little guy. This spider is called the shearweb spider. Fat and sluggish spider, small size, looks like a rugby ball with legs. When it sees intruders, it will try to scuttle away. Its bite is harmless. It will never try to attack. What it does do is spin a very fine, very strong web, which has carbon fibers. It's like basically trying to cut through leather armor. And it can cut through your flesh like a wire through cheese. So it's kind of dangerous if you would run into it with your neck or something like that. If you do walk into it and you're not metal armored, you're probably going to take some damage from basically being cut by this very small strand that is super, super hard. Doesn't really say. It seems like it's the kind of thing you'd try to figure out how to use, right? You'd want to get a hold of the spider, use these webs somehow, some type of a weapon. If you do happen to get excited and you run right into a big web so that you get cut from all kinds of places, you do take 6d8 of damage from getting sliced all over the place. And generally they say the webs are so thin, so fine, you won't actually see them. And so if you're not using some kind of precaution, you can in fact get yourself, the first party member at least, get himself or herself pretty well cut up. Here's the were goblin. It is crazy looking. There's a snake version and a panther version. The were goblin is a lycanthrope, but rather than being humanoid, they are goblin as their base, and they can basically take the form of a snake or a panther. And they do, as you might imagine, constricting damage, biting damage, and if they're a panther, clawing damage. And then we have the rock lizard, a small size, chaotic evil from the elemental plane of earth. On the material plane, it is usually hunting for food, which in its case would be iron and bronze. It'll track people until you're going to sleep and then move in to feast on delicacies like your daggers, swords, armor, etc. Can eat 50 gold pieces of weight at one time before it will be full and then move off. It can move through stone at normal movement rate, and that's basically how it would get away from you if you ever encountered it underground. Its damage is not much. It only do 1 to 3 points of damage, so it's not really a danger in combat. It's more the danger it does by destroying your equipment. And then in Traveler, we've got a couple ideas here to add to your campaign. The white hole instead of the black hole, hyperstorms, and jump routes using the concepts of relativity. Again, I'm not a Traveler guy, but they played, obviously, and try to share some ideas about that. And then we have Magic Jar, Part 2, new magic items. Again, I like this quite a bit. The spider boots and gloves. If you have all 4, the gloves and the boots, you can basically climb like a spider climb spell. Then we have the Smoke Potion. A glass container divided into two sections, two different chemicals. And so no stopper. You have to, in other words, no way to open it. You just smash it, the two chemicals mix, and then it releases, it interacts, and you have this huge blue smoke cloud. Pretty cool item. Don't know how you'd ever figure out what it was, but if you knew what it was, it would be a pretty cool item to have, especially to try and get away or use strategically. The small silver pentangle, 5-pointed star, is the pentagram of power. Hangs on a gold chain. The necklace provides protection from evil 10-foot radius as if it were a clerical spell, and complete immunity to undead energy level drains. So every character I know would love to have this magic item. That said, if it is ever removed or damaged, all the energy it has absorbed will be released in a large blast like a fireball. So basically 1d6 for every level drain that it has absorbed, be an extra d6 of damage. That's just by taking it off too. That's not just if you break it. The possession necklace, regular necklace with a small gemstone that doesn't appear to be particularly valuable, gives out a lot of magical aura if you detect magic. And it has the powers basically like a magic jar. And if you the wearer, suffer enough damage that you would go to 0 or less hit points, then your mind and soul will be transferred into the gem. The body will die, but then if anyone else puts on the necklace, they have to save versus magic, or you get to take over their mind and body. I'm not sure how great an item that is. Maybe it's better than death. Illusion containers, created by illusionists to use by a thief guild. Any sort of container has a permanent spell on them. They appear to be empty, and unless you save versus spells, you won't realize there's actually treasure in there. There's the back page, and then that is it for the Beholder number 14. Once again, welcome to 2025. I hope you all are having a great new year, and I'm looking forward to lots of great videos, sharing great things with you in the community in the year ahead. Have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.